Good morning, We Local. The We Local Host Committee and I have been waiting for this moment since last summer. That's right, we've been organizing and planning for almost 8 months. And though the beginning had its slow moments, I cannot believe we were finally here with just under 600 attendees. That makes us the second largest We Local conference for 2018. And it is what I would say is a close call, and Local Portland is only second largest conference by 11 attendees. I cannot wait for you to see what Portland has to offer. From local members and speakers, local organizations supporting the career fair, and local foods, my favorite, the next 2 days will give you a great glimpse of what makes Portland weird. It is now my honor and pleasure to welcome the Society of Women Engineers President-elect Penny Wirsing.
Good morning, We Local Portland. I'm Penny Wirsing, and I'm not only the president-elect, I'm also an environmental engineer at the Torrance Refinery in Southern California, and I am happy to share a few stats with you about We Local Portland. Nicole shared a couple. In the next 2 days, you will meet 583 attendees from over 30 states, from as far west as Alaska and Hawaii, as far east as New York and Vermont. Who's here from Vermont? And everything in between. What's more remarkable is that our attendees are about 50% collegiates and 50% professionals. So just imagine the possibilities for the mentorship that you will have this weekend. And then last but not least, tomorrow, over 50 middle school students will be joining the We Local Portland attendees for SWE Next Design Lab. Has anybody ever participated in that before? Yes? It is so cool, isn't it? This is a half-day event designed to give students a hands-on engineering experience and really get them excited about what it is to be an engineer. So We Local Portland is sure to create all kinds of new connections. These connections are not possible without the support of organizations like Intel, who helps support SWE's mission to be the world's largest advocate and catalyst for change for women in engineering and technology. It is my pleasure to welcome our platinum sponsor representative, Dr. Cormac Conroy, Corporate Vice President and General Manager of the Communications and Devices Group at Intel Corporation. Dr. Conroy will introduce today's Wake Up We Local keynote speaker, Ms. April Mills.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Intel Corporation, welcome to We Local Portland. Intel is proud to be a long-time sponsor of the Society of Women Engineers. We've also been a member of the SWE Corporate Partnership Council for over 13 years. And I am honored to be with such an important group this morning in Portland, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here. At Intel, we are powering the future of computing and communications and delivering experiences once thought impossible. We are a world leader in the design and manufacturing of essential technologies and platforms that power the cloud and an increasingly smart and connected world. Our technologies unlock the power of data and deliver experiences like, for example, being able to ride in self-driving cars, connect with each other over lightning-fast mobile networks, leverage artificial intelligence to improve many aspects of our lives and experience virtual worlds. Our goal is to be the foundation of the most important innovations of the future. And as we enter Intel's 50th year in business, we adhere to the mandate of our co-founder, Robert Noyce, who said, "Don't be encumbered by history. Go off and do something wonderful." You can think of Intel's wireless business, which is my own role, as kind of the fabric that ties all those computing elements together. The large amounts of data that need to be computed and processed and stored also need to be transported. And transporting that data wirelessly using the power of communication technologies such as 5G, Wi-Fi, LTE, Bluetooth, WiGig is what I and a few thousand engineers in my team wake up in the morning and focus on and are really passionate about. Over the last few years, we've recruited a number of very, very key engineers and leaders from the industry, but we're far from done. I imagine there are many people sitting in the room today in front of me who can help us in our mission for the future to change the world wirelessly. So if you have some resume, give it to us later. And if you haven't heard, as part of our company vision and commitment, we've also pulled in by 2 years our company audacious goal of achieving full representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the US. So our original goal was 2020, and we are now committed to doing it in 2018, which is this year. So we're really, really excited about that. Going back to my own role a little bit, I lead a large organization of engineers and business team, and over the last few years I've seen the tremendous positive change that come about when our teams are diverse, and more importantly, when they are inclusive. From my own perspective, I try very hard to be a role model in our organization in terms of empowering women and diverse engineers, giving additional recognition, opportunities, growth opportunities, and providing increased visibility. We have many, many outstanding diverse leaders in our organization. And I've also encouraged other leaders inside and outside my team to do the same. Really, our goal is to advocate for diversity and inclusion and help solve those problems together. The bottom line, with diversity and inclusion, we achieve better results, and more importantly, the way we achieve them is better. I know that, of course, we will face challenges on this journey, and that our work won't be done so quickly, but through mentorship, empowering and encouraging diverse leaders to take on more responsibility, and providing opportunities for enhanced visibility and development, we will get there. We must remain vigilant, though, both within Intel and across the technology industry. Overall, Intel is really proud to be setting an example and pushing the industry forward in the area of diversity and inclusion, and helping to create a future where all people are valued for who they are. And we'd like to also know who you are, so don't forget to drop off that resume. So before I conclude today, I have the great honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, April Mills. April is an engineer by trade and a tireless change agent by calling. In her almost 20-year career, April has rebuilt diesel engines, maintained US nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers, launched a consulting practice, and transformed a global tech giant's approach to creating organizational change. In 2016, April published her first book, Everyone is a Change Agent, a guide to the change agent essentials. On her website and blog, which is engineforchange.com, April shares her passion for creating positive change, outlining ways that anyone can drive change for themselves or their organization or their community. As a working mother of 4, April has even found time to volunteer in her local community. She was recognized as a YWCA Women of Achievement for expanding community access to quality childcare. And in 2014, she led Bremerton Beyond Accessible Play to open Kitsap County's first accessible playground for children and adults of all abilities. The playground's use provided increased opportunities for the first time to thousands of children with special needs. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce and welcome Wake Up We Local keynote speaker, April Mills.
First order of business is to find where they hid the clicker. Every keynote's essential rules. Good morning, We Local. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me today. This is an especially special honor for me because I wouldn't be standing up here today many, many years after my first experience with engineering if it wasn't for women and men like you. I was a young girl in a small town who knew I liked math and science but didn't want to go into the medical field, and they really couldn't tell me what I should do. And then my guidance counselor said, there's this Women in Engineering thing at Michigan Tech that the college women are putting on. Maybe you should go up there and check it out. So I spent a week in the UP of Michigan when it was over 100 degrees. Never is 100 degrees up there, so no air conditioning. But it was wonderful. The passion and excitement those collegiate women showed me for engineering got me hooked. And it was because of scholarship opportunities that were offered by companies like Cummins Engine Company, which is where I did that diesel engine work, that allowed me to fund my college experience through a ski scholarship and start me off on my engineering career. So if you're wondering whether it's tomorrow with those middle school girls or when you're doing that outreach or giving those scholarships, what is the long-term outcome of that? On behalf of them, 20 years from now, I want to say thank you today. So give yourselves a round of applause. Now, what they've asked me to talk about today, we've labeled Trade Secrets of an Aspiring Wonder Woman. The trade secrets aspect is, what are those things which over the course of a career you learn that you know that others really should know to help them be better and faster and stronger and more authentic with who they are. And the Aspiring Wonder Woman piece is because each of us dreams, at whatever age you are, yes, that is me, welcome to the 80s, of living out that dream of being your own Wonder Woman. So I'm really excited today to talk to you about some things that have helped me along my journey that I've either learned the hard way or through good mentoring, but I'd like to share that with you so that your journey, as you aspire to be your own version of Wonder Woman, can be more successful, more fulfilling, and more joyful. Does that sound like a good plan for us today? All right. Woo. A few of you are like, oh, I'm eating breakfast. Hold on, let me put it down. Yeah, no clapping during breakfast, right? It throws people off. All right. So let's get into the stories here, because I'm going to try and tell you a lot of stories of what it was like learning how to be this aspiring Wonder Woman, and I'm still on my own personal journey. So the first point here, go first. This is a lesson I learned while working for the U.S. Navy. I was a civilian nuclear engineer up in Bremerton, Washington, and I was actually telling somebody in the room this morning, when they interviewed me and brought me out to Bremerton, they put me on the flight deck of the USS Carl Vinson, and they said, all this can be yours. And I'm one of those engineers who likes big toys, right? And I said, oh, by the way, you get to go work on the nuclear power plant. We don't just show that to anyone. Ooh, that sounds good. I loved my time with the U.S. Navy. I was there for 14 years. And one of the things that I learned is that there's a bit of a myth about how to make change happen in organizations. Typically, when we think about how to make change happen, we think we need to order people to change, right? We think of the military, we think of orders and following orders. And so we think change probably happens a bit like this. And yes, these are my illustrations, and I did ask my illustrator to draw me as the person holding the whip. Because I'll be honest with you, when I thought of how to create change, and when I was given my first opportunity to lead a program, I thought my job was to boss people around. And so I set a target, a lofty goal, and then I said, you will come to my meetings, you will follow my spreadsheet, you will do as you're told. How does that sound? And if anybody else had this experience, the first time they come to your meeting because they're curious. The second time they come to tell you all the reasons you're wrong. And the third time they don't show up. And then you go to your boss and say, will you go do it? Make them? And on it goes. But being an engineer, I didn't like this because I wasn't getting the outcome I wanted, right? There's nothing worse than running the test and not getting the outcome you want. So I had to figure out what is going wrong here. And the first thing I had to do was label the problem. And so we labeled this driving people, where we use coercion or threats to compel others to change. And too often in organizations, this is how we think change must happen. But it wasn't working. It wasn't getting me the outcome I wanted. It didn't feel authentic to the way I wanted to change and create change and lead. So I went looking for something better. And that's where I found this aspect, this first trade secret of go first. You see, successful change happens not when you order others, but when you show them the way. When you're willing to say, I'm going to choose this for myself, I'm going to put myself out there, I'm going to risk, and then I'm going to ask, who wants to join me? And I look out at the room today, and we've got a conference chair who had to say, I want to go first. I want to do this. And we all get to benefit from that. And if we know that this is a better model for change, how do we describe it to others in a way which allows them to go first too? So we gave this a name. Call this driving change, where you're choosing a change for yourselves and clearing the obstacles for others to join you. Now some of you are thinking, well, this is just what I naturally do. There's a name for that? There's a name for that. Right? And just like we learned in engineering, oh, that's what we call when that happens? You got to give something a name or you can't repeat it, right? So let's call it driving change, and we can do wonderful things. So the first trade secret I want to share with you is go first. Because if you will drive change, you will create space for others to thrive. And many folks in organizations, in communities, are hungry for a place where they can thrive, but they need us to go first. So if you will, you'll create amazing change. Now the next trade secret I want to share with you is don't give up. And the story that goes along with learning this lesson is the one around founding, forming, and running a group called Bremerton Beyond Accessible Play. So Carmen mentioned I have 4 children, and my second oldest, his name is Theodore, was born 10 years ago with a condition called spina bifida, which means his spine wasn't closed fully in utero, and he's had significant medical challenges and surgeries and hospital stays throughout his life. And he and kids like him in our community, then in Bremerton, Washington, did not have a place to play. They would sit in their wheelchairs and watch as their siblings played on playgrounds. So several women, several mothers, community members and I got together and formed Bremerton Beyond Accessible Play. And we learned something really key about creating change and that energy in our community. And the key was to set very concrete goals. So when we would talk to people about the importance of accessible play, we would get nods and they had agreement. But when we started saying, by as soon as possible, children and adults with special needs in Kitsap County will experience a Beyond Accessible playground at Evergreen Rotary Park, people started to open their wallets, give us money, donate their time, get involved. And through setting that concrete goal we accelerated towards the solution we were driving. And you'll see this same thing in your own life and in your own work. If you set vague goals like get better at something, you may and you may not. But if you set very concrete goals using this simple little by date, who will, see, feel, touch, taste, experience, what, where, you will see acceleration towards your goals because the clarity of what you're doing and the clarity of how others can help you will shine through. So we took on this concrete goal. We chose to drive change. And over the course of 3.5 years, we raised $550,000. We not only built a 9,000 square foot playground, the first accessible playground in the entire county, but we also renovated the parking, renovated the rest of the park, and increased playground usage 7-fold. Now here's a fun story. The way you measure playground usage is not by sitting next to the playground with a clicker saying how many children are here. You ask the maintenance crew, how often do you have to put toilet paper in the bathroom? Turned out it was twice a week before we opened the new playground, and after we opened it, it was twice a day. So, indirect measures, right, ladies? Don't look at that, look over here. So fantastic, fantastic accomplishment. A blessing to be able to be part of a project like that. But the trade secret it taught me is don't give up. 3.5 years from if I looked at it from the beginning of that story, felt like forever. Folks said it'll take you 5 years. I had 2 children. I was pregnant with my 3rd. 5 years seemed like an eternity. In 3.5 years, we built the playground. I went from 2 children to 4 children. Sometimes it's just what we do, right? I look back, I was pregnant in most of the photos. But it taught me the important thing of don't give up, because you'll realize afterwards that time is relative. You're in college today, it feels like, oh, I've been in college forever. I'll tell you from where I'm sitting, college was a blur. And this picture of Theodore at 3 years old with his walker, trying to run a little kid stash, trying to be part of the community. And then when he was 7, sitting on the playground, smiling and laughing, reminds me how quick time passes. So as you're taking on a challenge in your life, look from the other side of it. It will feel short after, so don't give up. The next one is set your own limits. And this one's interesting because as I was talking with a friend about this speech, she goes, oh yeah, I get that one, right? Make sure, it's not risky and safe. And actually, I want you to think the opposite. Set your own limits means how big can you make them? Too often we find that folks want to set our limits for us. Anybody ever had that boss? Right? Yeah. Let's pick something different. So what does that look like? I want you to challenge assumptions about what's really out there and how scary it is. The blessings of my fantastic illustrator, Sarah Moyle, and I working up this picture of, it's a squirrel, but it's really a bear, but it's a squirrel, but it's a bear. I think that's a good metaphor for what we deal with the risks in our life and the fears in our life. And how many of you have had that good friend that goes, sweetheart, that's not a bear, that's a squirrel, get over it, move on, right? That's the challenge, the assumptions, the setting your own limits, allowing yourself to go, maybe it's not as scary as I thought it would be. That job where you're maybe 50% qualified based on the job description, just put your resume in, right? That change that you don't know if you should take because you don't know if it'll work, you know what? No one else knows if it would work either. Go for it. Because you can set your boundaries. What am I going to do today, and what do I want to do in the future? Don't let somebody else define the edges of your world. I can think back to times where folks were trying to really take care of me and say, no, don't do that. No one's ever succeeded at that. That never works. You're too young for that. That's not the right way to do that. Go show them your own way. Because they might be right. No one has ever done that before, so watch me, right? You have that opportunity. So the next trade secret is set your own limits. And because you'll learn what you really can do. And I put up here a copy of my book because my personal story with this one of blasting out my own limits was my wish that I would write a book someday. Maybe some of you have a similar wish like that. I wish someday I will. I always wish someday I would write a book. Then in 2016, I got a layoff notice from my job, and my son went into the hospital for 2 weeks. He's fine now, he was fine then, but we had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I thought, I can sit here and listen to children's TV for 16 hours a day and lose my mind, or I'll have my husband haul all my stuff around my change agency work, and I'm gonna sit here and write a book. So the nurses would come in and go, oh, are you studying for class? No. And so up on the hill here in Portland at Dornbecker at the Children's Hospital, I wrote a book. Now that's not everybody's style. It's not what everyone would do. My friends have reminded me, no, you're odd. And I'm okay with being odd. But I share it with you because I realized at that moment I was defining my limits. If I didn't see myself as an author, I wasn't an author. But when I decided to see myself as an author, it didn't matter where I was or what was going on in my life, I was going to be an author. And in 3.5 months, I self-published my book. And I'm really glad I did. And I share that with you as the trade secret of set your own limits because I think I was living in my own set of limits for far too long. And I'd hate for you to look back after years and say, I could have done that 5 years ago, I could have done that 10 years ago, I could have done that, but I chose not to because I was thinking too small. So think big, think Wonder Woman, and set your own limits. And the next one is be you. This one's like, well, no kidding, I read the blogs online, it always says, be authentic, just be you, right? But I mean it. I mean, too many people who are trying to be some image of what they think a woman engineer should be, a mother should be, a wife should be, a friend should be. And you know what? People don't need that ideal image. They need you. And the most important person who needs you is you. You know best. So what do we do here? I'm going to encourage you to ignore the conflicting signals in life. Has anybody ever seen the feed your children this, don't feed your children that once in the same day on your same news feed? And you go, fine, I give up McDonald's, we're done. Don't look at my van, there's too much McDonald's, I'm just admitting it. The $3 Happy Meal is my friend. Okay. But you can chart your own course. That might not work for you. That works for me. What works for you? Do what works for you. There's stories about women who go straight from college into grad school and are happy and joyful doing that. There's others of us, myself probably included, that'll wait until the last kid's out the door and go, bye, I'm going back to school. It's okay. I think we spend far too much time comparing our journey to someone else, but no one runs like you. No one thinks like you. No one is you, and the world doesn't need carbon copies. This world needs each of us in our authentic selves. So I encourage all of you, and especially those of you that are still in college, to think about not the ideal career, but your career. My career is not what I expected it to be, but it is better than I ever expected. Because I tried to stay true to myself, and at times when people wanted me to be someone else, I'm grateful I had help and reminders and the choice to be myself. So I'm up here authentically me, looking at a lot of authentic women that I love, and I hope you'll be authentically you. Because you weren't meant to be anyone else. And this is my daughter's drawing. This is my Mother's Day card last year. She's so sweet. She's 12, and she just keeps getting better. So she keeps making me better and better Wonder Woman pictures. I'm actually addicted to her Wonder Woman art. But this hangs on my refrigerator. This is how she sees me. So any day when I don't see myself as that Wonder Mom, It doesn't matter how I see me in that case. She sees me this way, and it gives me that encouragement and authenticity to be me again. So I share it with you if it motivates you, or if you're like, I hope someday I have that kid. Well, they might not draw this well. I don't know if they do. Even when she was 2, she was like, look at this, it's perfect. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go draw straight lines with my ruler, right? Anybody like horse diagrams? Woohoo! Got 6 markers, so your notes were the prettiest in class. That was me. Still are. But you weren't meant to be anyone else. So enjoy being you. And keep driving. Keep driving. Because each summit gives you a better view of the next height. You might conquer one class, one internship, one graduation, one first job, and each one will give you a better vantage point for what's next. One project in the community, one weekend volunteering, one moment at an outreach, working on a design challenge with young girls. Each one will give you a new vantage point to what comes next. So keep pushing through them, keep getting involved, keep driving, because you'll see better every time you take on a new challenge. And I firmly believe in what I call the change agent's motto, is I don't expect anybody to do things beyond their skills, beyond their point in life, beyond their economics, beyond their position in the hierarchy. All I ask from everyone is to do what you can with what you have where you are. Too often I meet people who assume someone else has more power than they do. They look to vice presidents and say, well, they're a vice president, they can do everything. And you talk to a vice president and they go, well, here's what I can do, and here's what I'm not like to do. And then the lawyers behind them going, it's really here. Always a challenge. But that's one of the myths we have, is we assume other people have more power and more capability than they do, and we assume we have less. So the change agent's motto is meant to remind you it's actually the other way around. If you'll do what you can with what you have where you are, you can do whatever you need to. And it might take you longer than expected. It might be different than you expected. It might not be the path someone else could take because they have something else, they are someone else, they're at someplace else. But that's not your journey, this is your journey. So do what you can with what you have where you are, and you will accomplish remarkable things in your life. So my current project, because I always have to have a project, ask my husband, there's always a project, is I'm developing 40 acres of land just east of here with a view of Mount Adams as a retreat center. Because I want to help those of us in this room, those special needs families, to slow down and enjoy life. Because we've got too much going on too often. So as we keep driving, we also have to keep driving for that part of life which makes us joyful, committed, excited, wonderful, and loved. And so each of us has our own projects we're working on. But if you'll do what you can with what you have where you are, you'll get to accomplish everything you'd hoped for. Because your next adventure might be the best one yet. And I truly believe that. I've experienced that. I've seen friends, colleagues go through that. Is it's always that next opportunity. Drive for it. Take it. And together we'll achieve great things. So, a little bit of wrap up here, and with one more thing. I encourage you to think about these trade secrets as you encounter the challenges in your life. Go first. If you'll drive change, you will create space for others to thrive. And events like this, opportunities like this are examples where that happens. Don't give up, because afterwards you'll realize time is relative. Set your own limits, because only you can decide what you really can do. Don't let others set them for you. And be you, because you weren't meant to be anyone else. And always keep driving, because your next adventure might be the best one yet. But there's one more thing I want to tell you. This one's very, very personal. And I'll try to get through this story, but I really believe I need to share it. In order for you to live as that aspiring Wonder Woman, don't overthink it. Just try. Try something. If we had sat there and said, I don't know if this will work, let me think of all the ways I can try and get it to work, and it might not work, and anybody ever overanalyze something? Right? Hand down, let's go try. If you see a need, and you go try and solve it, I'm confident you'll solve it better than all those people who aren't even working on it. Right? Anybody ever had that realization? Working on it's better than not even trying? So let's go try. And the important thing is to try together and to cherish those who attempt bold things with you. The woman in the picture here with me, her name is Rebecca Utah. She's a nuclear engineer for the U.S. Navy, a civilian. She's one of my best friends, and she passed away in December of 2016, suddenly. We created the playground together. We were the partners in crime. People would ask me, well, what's that detail? I go, I don't know, Becca knows it. Right? We were one of those teams where we didn't have to know what the other one knew because we were in it together. She left us too soon, but she left a mark on the community. So I encourage you to look around you in this room at those folks that are with you on this journey. You are not alone in trying. You are not alone in being that aspiring Wonder Woman. You can achieve remarkable things, but you have to try. I'm grateful that we decided to try and build that playground together. We didn't know how much time we had, but we got it done, and she got a chance to see her sons play there joyfully, and they continue to play there joyfully and remember her. And you have that opportunity to make that powerful difference in so many lives. So I encourage you to stay connected. I'm here for you. We're part of a sisterhood, a community, a family, a world that is making a difference. And if we can break out of all the things that might be holding us back and leverage those trade secrets, I'm confident there's nothing we can't do. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, April. That was truly inspiring for many reasons that touched home for me. So we're going to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions for April, we have a few minutes. Just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you. Yes. I have one question to start. Your daughter, who is quite the artist, does she know what she wants to be when she grows up?
She does. We actually went down on spring break last year to Pixar in the Bay Area. I was lucky enough to make a connection with somebody who's an animator there, and so she wants to be an animator, but not just an animator. She wants to have her own shows. So she wants to be the boss. She wants to be like the Shonda Rhimes of animation. Her own channel, probably.
Questions? Oh, yes.
So how do you combat like the negative self-talk or self-doubt before you really take the leap and try?
How do you combat the negative self-talk? One is you have to recognize it. It's funny, for years I was teaching people about driving change, not people, and the importance of going first and that positive thinking. And then I reflected on it and realized that I wasn't doing that with myself. I was still beating on myself and saying, you have to, and you should, and why aren't you, and almost like an Excel sheet in my head of my failures. Anybody got one of those? It's an Excel, right? It's really sad how it's like it is. There's charts and graphs. That's what goes too far. But if you can realize, if I can drive change with others and help them see the potential, try and do that to yourself. And that's what helped me get past it.
Thank you. Questions? The eyes. She was fabulous.
Do you have another book in the works in your head?
Yeah, I have like 5 or 6, but I have 4 kids, so. I don't know, I know, I don't want any of them to get sick so I have more time. That's what somebody asked me once, but I'll get them out there eventually.
Steps in this morning.
Hi. So I was just wondering, since you did such a great job with the playground and everything, I was just reflecting on my path and what I want to do. I'm from Nigeria actually, and we don't have constant power there, and that's something that I've always wanted to work towards achieving. But it's also like a government influence type problem. So I'm just wondering, when it's something that is affected by something higher than you, how can you deal with that? How can you approach it?
Yeah, great question. So one of the stories I didn't share was, for years, I was also a union representative for the engineers union at the Naval Shipyard, and did government advocacy for the Navy and for other issues, like for expanding the ability for women to breastfeed at work and other things in terms of changing government policy. And one of the big things that I learned through all of that is the concept of that driving change. Where if you say, here's what I'm going to do and what can you do to partner with me, that's a very different approach than a lot of people take, which is, here's a problem, why aren't you doing it? I'm going to try and see if I can get pressure or negative influences to convince the government to change. It's actually much easier if you go in and say, hey, by the way, policy 4.7.2 should read this, and if it read that, I can provide an engineering solution that would accomplish this. Most folks will change it. So question.
Good morning. I just wanted to say thank you for being so vulnerable today. But I also wanted to touch on your first point about driving people versus driving change. So the idea of driving people doesn't work because it's not sustainable. But the idea of driving change is also sort of built on the assumption that you're in a level or neutral play field. How do you handle trying to drive change when you have people in your organization that are reluctant to change or even opposed to those changes?
Yeah, great question. So one of the key things actually with driving change is it's actually less necessary to have any sort of power difference than it is for driving people. So in order to drive people, I need to have some amount of authority, otherwise people don't have to listen, right? Does anybody realize that people actually never have to listen, even if you're their boss or their program manager? And so driving change is actually more powerful when you've got either a level playing field or actually you're a level down. Because if you go in and say, look, here's all the things I'm doing, and I think this is the benefit, how do you see it and how can you partner with me? People are more willing to share their information, to talk to you about what are the real obstacles, and then if you go off and go, okay, great, thank you, and you get something done, they'll start coming to you. Because in most organizations, when it's rife with people driving people, you don't have helpers, right? Where everyone who comes to meet with me just wants me to do something for them, they don't want to do something for me. So if you become the person who can get something done for someone else, because you want to, not because you're trying to do that whole, I'll do something for you, you do something for me, it changes your relationships entirely in the organization. And some folks won't get it, they won't like it, and they won't get on board. And that's true in any organization, in any community, and so let the haters be haters and move on.
So can you tell us about maybe a failed project and how you approached that and kind of how you moved on from that?
Yeah, so the first project that I did that the driving people, driving change realization came from was I was trying to lead a large organizational shift in management behaviors in an 800-person organization. I was, 24 maybe, one of the only women. And I thought I knew how the world worked. And I went in and told them the boss said, I'm in charge, so you gotta do what I said. Can you imagine how well that went over? Right? Who is she? Who does she think she is? And how quickly can we tell him she doesn't know what she's doing, so he gets rid of her? Right? And honestly, I deserved it. Because I wasn't listening. I wasn't humble. I wasn't seeking to understand. Now, would my solution work? Yeah, it worked. And where I could get it implemented, it was fantastic. But I went about it the wrong way. And it taught me a ton about how not to just go in and try and steamroll, right? I've got the knowledge, I've got a solution that works, they should just listen. When I could get over that and figure out what can I do, it got more joyful, I got a lot more done, and I realized some of those places where, some folks are just stuck, and there's a lot more things to go figure out, so let the water flow around the rock and go get something else done. Anybody think there's a shortage of problems to solve in the world? So go solve a different one.
Hi, April.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, I was like,
I am Siri, and I can relate to your story. If you remember, right in 2016, when you are hearing and you are in multiple situations, you agreed to come talk to the Columbia River section. I'm the change agent. From that day on till today, I see that your message has grown more positive and more humble. And thank you so much for giving the message today. One question you might have answered before, but how do you keep yourself motivated when things are taking longer? I'm not guessing that you have a series of Wonder Woman pictures, but when things are difficult, when you're discouraged for the negativity, how do you keep yourself motivated to move on?
great question. So at the very personal level, I do spend a lot of time in devotion. I've found that that's a big place for me to go to get centered and grounded. Each person has their own way of finding that. I do go to that. And then it's also, I give myself a lot of grace. I was the hardest person on myself for most of my life. I had loving family, loving husband, loving children, and I was constantly angry I wasn't doing enough. And when I let go of that anger and said things will happen in the time they're supposed to happen, a whole new area in my life freed up. So if you were the hardest person in your life on you, rethink that one. Be kind. And it takes as long as it takes. The child care that we worked on took 10 years. And it was fits and starts and everything else. But in the end, I got my daycare center. So, if you just stay on it, you'll wear them down. I keep smiling, it creeps them out. Like, why are you so happy? Because I know I'll win.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much, first of all. And like someone said, I really appreciate the vulnerability that you shared today. That was really inspiring. And I think probably like most people here, you have a lot of ideas, clearly, and a lot of really good ideas. So how do you pick what to focus your energy on? Because I'm definitely the type of person that is like, I want to do this, and this, and then at the end of the day, I'm really tired.
Yeah. So you can go full, engineering tool method and say, get a Kanban board and use whip control. Anybody love, right, process flows? I've done that at times when I just couldn't get my mind out. I'm like, okay, do the engineering on your own life, do the engineering on your own life. And then other times, I think it really is that honesty about if I can't do all of it, what do I want to do well, right? And even, with a job, with kids, with a house, don't come see my house this week, I haven't been home. Some things give while other things shine. And the sooner you get to that realization too, of it's okay to have the messy house if you have a great week at work. Don't beat yourself up because the house is messy while you're having a great week. Celebrate the great week and go home and sit in the mess with the wine and you're fine. So, balance.
Do you think that the difficulty on yourself was formative and very useful for you in order to get to that next step of saying, okay, I'm over that now, and I can kind of give myself that grace and give myself that, because I kind of see that a lot of times that nervousness and that kind of like crushing sense of the world collapsing around you progresses you on to that next step, as well as it can keep you back, but it's kind of like a really fine line.
Yeah, That's what I thought before I gave it up. I thought this is probably what has gotten me the successes in my life, this worry, this frustration, this energy to have to do. And once I gave it up, I was like, oh, that was dumb. Just being fully honest. So I probably was too hard on myself for too long because I gave it up. I'm still the same driven person. I'm still passionate and committed. I still have the energy. I just don't have the angst of that negative story going on while I'm accomplishing it all. So I'm lighter, I'm freer. I thought it was what was helping me. Now that I'm past it, I wish I'd given it up 20 years earlier. So all of you in college, don't do that to yourself for another 20 years, please. And then that'll be my gift back to the universe.
I think that's it for our time.
Okay, thank you so much.
We Local breakfast here. Dr. Conroy has a recognition for you.
Awesome, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So thank you so much. Appreciate everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you back here at lunch.
Yes.
Thank you.